Okay, so welcome everybody to the Youth and Young Adults Workshop on the Leadership Series from the Pennsylvania State Grange. We are going to do a workshop titled what if this is the new normal? I'm going to share my screen because I have some slides prepared, and it's basically just to open up a discussion about what happens if this is the new normal and how, what do we do? How do we keep Grange going? and in particular, the youth department. So anytime anybody has any comments, just feel free to chip in here. There we go. So this, I figured we'd start out with a snapshot in time of what our summer period of 2019 looked like for the Pennsylvania Youth and Young Adults Department. We started off in April with Young Adults Weekend. We had Royalty Day with the junior royalty and the youth and young adults at Harrisburg and Hershey Park. We did a full-fledged youth camp. Many of our youth were at junior camp as counselors and instructors. We had Family Festival. Some of us went to the Grange Revival in Arkansas, and we wrapped up the end of September with our annual Youth and Young Adults Picnic. Needless to say, it was a busy summer, right? Busy season. Then summer of 20 was this, virtual youth camp. Everything else beginning in March was canceled or changed to virtual. So it was a little depressing on one hand, and yet it opened up the door for some new thinking and new ways of doing things. This year, summer of 21, we actually, at the beginning of January, started a monthly Zoom meeting, Grange Youth Mixer, that's Jim. We did monthly ones for January, February, March, April so far. And it was mainly our way of trying to connect with youth across the state, just to spend some time with them, trying to keep that connection alive, and also just a relaxed atmosphere, not a hugely scheduled event. This year we are going to do Royalty Day in person, and we hope to do youth and junior camp in person, as well as Family Festival. The Grange Revival is a national event. It's in person. And then hopefully towards the end of the summer, we will do our Young Adults Weekend and Youth and Young Adults Picnic, as we did 2 years ago. So these are planned events. Of course, they're always subject to change at this point. Like I said, with youth camp, we're hoping that we're going to be able to do that in person, but that being the real first big event, we're not even sure how many youth are willing to come and be in person at that event. We have talked about recording some of the workshops and like coordination, some of the annual things that we do, and having them available on Facebook or on Zoom as well. So what are some of the things that are the same with between 2019, 2020, and 2021. The first main thing that I came up with was youth and others getting together. And I think this is the important thing about trying to maintain communication and having events such as our monthly gym online, because I feel like our youth and young adults like to get together. They like to see each other. We are friends, not just, fellow Grangers. And so I think that that's a big part of what makes the youth department strong. I'm gonna take it out of presentation mode so that we can actually add some things onto this slide, I believe. Maybe I have to do this first. Okay. All right. So this is where I'd like to open it up and get some thoughts of what you all see is the same. What are the things that we have that are the same between 2019, 2020, and 2021? So opening it up to anybody to jump in here with thoughts. Lindsay, I wasn't sure if you said something.
Yeah. Did you not hear it?
No.
Okay. Hold on, let me make sure. Well, we still have our youth committee meetings. Those are the same.
Yeah, and we've been able to meet in person and online.
Yeah, exactly.
To piggyback off of that, it seems like the ideas are still flowing, even though we're apart. Everyone still seems to be creative with different things that we can do.
I was going to say something similar to that too. I just didn't know how to phrase it. We're still willing to try new things. Like we didn't get stuck in a rut just because we.
All right, anybody else?
You still have the contest, the speaking and sign a song, even though they're virtual.
True.
Yeah, did we do the Mid-Atlantic in 2020 as well? Like, were we a part of that?
No, that was canceled completely.
Yeah, because it was going to be hosted by New Jersey. That was like the first event that got canceled.
Gotcha.
All right. So there's a lot of things that are still the same. Basically, the foundation of all being Grange members. I think all Grangers like to get together. We like to socialize with each other. We like to find out how each other is doing and, celebrations and hardships. And definitely these other ideas that you came up with, that we've still been able to keep our programs, most of our programs going, even on a virtual level. And trying, I mean, in 2020, a lot of events and people and the regular way of doing things had to be changed, and we had to all come up with new things. And I think that we were able to do this fairly easily, and also borrowing ideas from other youth departments and in around the country. Like, you know, I'd like to take credit for Jim or give credit to Rob and Jen or anybody else, but we really stole the idea from Massachusetts Youth Department. So, but it was a good idea, so we wanted to try it in our state and see how it went. Anybody think of anything else that's the same before I go on to the next slide? All right. So then some of the things that we are encountering that are different. I put some obvious ones up here: masks, wearing masks, being required to wear masks, taking temperature before you go into a place. I have to take my temperature each day I go into my office. And I know when we went to, gosh, last October, we went to Chocolate World and we had to go through the temperature scanners there. When I went to one of the hospitals to drop off some of the bags, treat bags that we made with the young adults weekend, I had to get my temperature taken before I could go in the hospital. So there's all kinds of places that are requiring temperature checks. We've talked about taking temperatures each morning at youth camp and junior camp. I think it might just be something along with wearing masks that is going to be more the normal way of doing business instead of just a temporary thing. Especially mask wearing, I feel like that's going to be a very personal choice in the next couple of years, where if you don't feel comfortable being in a group of a lot of people, or in a store where there's people going in and out, you're going to be more apt to wear a mask. Where 15 months ago, you know, we never even would have thought of wearing a mask. So, or looked at people who were wearing masks strangely, like, you know, what's wrong with them? What disease or what sickness do they have that they're wearing a mask for? So what other things can you think of that are going to be different now as we move forward over the next couple months than what we experienced in 2019?
Well, we definitely have to like put a cap on like how many people can attend things. Like especially junior camp. I think Philip mentioned it in the other meeting that we could potentially have, you know, we could easily get 100 kids, but we can only cap it off at like 70 or something.
Right. Yeah.
And that goes for any event, even nationals or, you know, state.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a consideration now based on the size of the building or accommodations, like how many people are going to be able to be in attendance to fulfill the requirements for social distancing. So I'm going to add social distancing too. Anything else that's going to be different? How is this going to look different this year than 2 years ago? Or even last year?
I think even without the cap of attendees and social distancing, Ellen, you kind of alluded to it, just people's comfort with being around others. So I think we can just probably notice that there'll be reduced numbers with some things just because some people are not comfortable just getting out there just yet.
That's kind of like what I was going to say. We have to be accepting of other people's comfort levels. You know, not criticize them if they do want to wear a mask and you don't, or if they refuse to wear a mask and you think they should. We just have to be accepting.
I think what also would be different is that we give the option of like having a live feed too, if people, you know, wanted to attend and they can't make it but want to see what's going on. Live feed or Zoom, whatever. Definitely would not do that 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something we didn't ever have to think about in the past, was having the ability to make events or workshops or anything available in person and on Zoom or Facebook Live or whatever. Any other things making this different this year? Alrighty. So this is kind of the same, along the same lines of what's different. But basically, one of the things that I see and I'm concerned about is how we can avoid Zoom burnout, like how we can encourage people to connect to events by Zoom when that's all they've done for 15 months is sit in front of their computer on Zoom. Especially for us, I think it's especially important for the school and college, high school, middle school, college age. If they're doing remote learning at school and they are already exhausted being in front of a computer screen, how do we get them to join us on Zoom for events like gym, or to view youth camp events if they choose not to come in person, or even things like this leadership workshop? Like what are some ways that we can adjust our thinking and planning to keep this burnout from happening? I don't know. Anybody have any suggestions?
I think with kind of the new guidelines from the CDC, it makes outdoor events something that's probably much more likely to do, or it's safer to do with people around. So maybe seeing what we can do to incorporate doing more things outdoors. You know, we were doing the picnic in 2019, which is almost exclusively an outdoor event. Camp, trying to incorporate being outside a little bit more. Kind of gets a little difficult when the weather changes, but at least during the warmer months, that's something we could try to do a little more.
Yeah, that's definitely something good and a very recent change that they've kind of been encouraging, that keeping stuff outside. Any other suggestions?
Outdoors works for some things, but this, I guess burnout is already happening because last night we had a trivia,
Oh, right.
Cultivating Connections trivia. There were 7 people on,
Wow.
where the last one we had, I think there were like 60. So even something that I think is interesting that people used to love, they're not interested anymore. So I don't know if it's because other things are available now, stores are open, you know, you can do other things. So people are busier. They're not desperate like they were last year. I don't know what to do about it.
I think that's a big part of it. Like things are opening up again. The weather's nicer. There are places to go, and people are just aching to get out and not be staring at a screen to do an activity.
Yeah, exactly.
And also Ellen talked about it's not like Zoom is just your extracurricular. It's your school, it's your work. So when you leave work, the last thing you want to do is jump on another Zoom.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is I don't know that it's burnout that's happening right now, but I think that Betsy kind of hit the nail on the head. The weather's getting better for the most part. You're able to get outside, and things are opening up. You know, you're able to go out to dinner and sit outside and eat. More so now than a month ago when it was still freezing cold, or a week, depending on how you where you live. So yeah, I mean I think that maybe that's what we'll see more competing with Zoom connections, is the fact that people can be outside and doing other activities, and they don't need that Zoom activity to fulfill their social connection.
I think even with these Saturday sessions, like Philip said, there weren't many people on the junior one. There's not many of us here this morning. I just don't see these, like, I think these sessions would be really beneficial if people were willing to hop on Zoom and come to them. But it's just too nice outside now. There's
Yeah.
too much other stuff to do.
Yeah, I know when this series was being planned, I don't think we really even thought about the weather and the fact that, you know, it would start to get nice out. They would probably be more successful through the winter when you can't get outside. So like that might be a consideration for next year if we decide to do this again, is to do it through the winter months when things are much more difficult to do outside, or other people might not want to be outside. And then it doesn't matter if it's a snowstorm, as long as you have power and internet, you can still connect to the leadership session. So the first bullet on here, how can we adjust for this new normal and continue to run our programs? I do believe that what we are operating in right now, with wearing masks in stores and businesses and places indoors, is going to continue. I wouldn't be surprised if it continues for a couple of years, just based on the variants that you hear about on the news and the resurgence of the virus in India. I just think that people are going to be more inclined to wear masks and socially distance for a lot longer than we ever thought we would need to. So, I mean, I think this is the new normal. This is going to be something that we have to take into consideration for planning our programs. you know, a couple of years ago, we used to do youth and junior lock-in for the older juniors and the younger youth, just to kind of bridge that gap from junior Grange to the youth program. And everybody would stay overnight, camped out on the floors of a Grange hall. But I don't think we're going to be doing that kind of activity anytime soon. So how can we adjust our programming to allow for changes in society, like socially distancing, and still be able to run a successful program? And, you know, using Zoom or Facebook Live are some of the ways, but there's got to be some other ways out there that we can accomplish our programming successfully. Anybody have any comments?
Helen, I think in every program that is out there, our youth and juniors need to have a purpose or an incentive to get on, is like today, to get on one of these Zoom meetings. You know, the weather is a factor. We have ball games now going on and practices. So the schedule has gotten really full, but just as an example, the photo contest that Philip shared, if your leaders out there aren't pushing your juniors to get involved in some of these activities that are being made available virtually, you know, you're not going to have the participation. So, you know, your leadership in the state has to have the purpose of, you know, getting their members involved, no matter how it's happening, whether it be in person or virtual. But they need to have a purpose. They need to have a reason for doing it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Definitely. They need to see why it's important to them that they participate and what they're going to get out of it. Anybody else? Any other ideas of different things that we can try as a Grange to encourage people to attend either in person or virtually, or maybe things that you've tried in your Grange or community, other organizations in your community that has turned out to be successful? I think one of the things that has seemed to really be successful are these drive-through food fundraisers. You know,
Yeah, that's what we're doing a lot at Virginville. So
Yeah.
many takeout drive-through things.
yeah. I mean, the Grange in various communities was famous for their dinners. And how cool is it that we've been able to translate that dinner in, you know, in the Grange Hall to still that same food, great food, chicken barbecue, chicken pot pie, whatever it might be, into something that you can drive through and pick up, still support the Grange, and take it home and eat it, you know, where you feel safer at this time. Any other ideas of things like that where we've been able to morph our typical activities into something different?
I've noticed a lot of people are putting on how the groups are doing more highway pickup or more community service projects because it's outside events. And, you know, that's something that the Grange is founded on, you know, doing community service. And I think there's always something out there in your community that you're just, you know, bypassing and not really thinking about what could you help to do.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I also thought of events like Eagle Grange just conducted last month, um, which was their road rally. That turned out to be way more successful than they thought it would be. And I know it's something that we as a youth department had actually planned to do at Family Festival last year, which we had to postpone. And I think we're still going to try to do that this year at Family Festival, not as a fundraiser or anything, but just as an activity for people to do together in small groups, small teams, but still kind of do together. Also, one of the things that the youth department talked about starting this spring was taking the 150 acts of service, copying from the Grange History Committee and doing it on a youth and young adult level, which goes into what Dina was just commenting about, looking around in the community for more projects and activities that you can do outside in your local area. So we will be kicking off probably at youth camp or during youth camp, our 150 acts of service over the next year, celebrating the Grange birthday, but also trying to encourage our youth and young adults to get out and do things. And it doesn't have to be something big like cleaning a mile of road, although that definitely counts, but even just, helping someone load groceries in their car, or really anything, donating gently used clothes to a shelter or thrift store, that kind of thing. Like any kind of act of service, act of kindness, is something that we are going to kick off in the next month or so. Anybody else have any ideas? It's so quiet.
I thought another neat project that was on our program Thursday night, Wednesday night, whenever it was, Thursday, I think, was the bucket gardens. A Grange up in Connecticut
Yeah.
got a bunch of 5-gallon buckets from Home Depot, and I think some were donated from the store, and filled them with soil, compost, and planted seeds in them and gave them out to anybody in the community that wanted them. Or no, I think they sold them. I think they actually sold them for like $5 or $10 to cover the cost. But that would be something that youth could do. It's probably the time now to do it. It wouldn't work in different times of the year, but with people getting interested in gardens now, that would be a good project service.
True. I think the comment from that gentleman that I remember the most was he believes that the Grange was founded by farmers, but now it's all gardeners that belong to it, something like that.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that definitely is something that's kind of surged in popularity since the pandemic began was people at home more, so they're doing more gardening, trying more things, and something like a bucket is easy enough to move around and give out. Um, Definitely to promote the Grange and being active in the community. All right, anybody have anything else? Any other suggestions or comments? Different ways that we can continue to not only try to build the Grange and attract new members and youth, but also what ways that we can keep our current membership moving forward, even though we kind of seem to be stuck in this pandemic. And I wanted to do this, what if this is the new normal topic? Just because every day on the news, all I hear is, well, when things go back to normal, when things return to normal. And like at my office, I don't think we will ever get back to a point where we will all be in the office together at the same time. I and part of that is good. Like the leadership seems to be much more willing to allow people to telework, and that's been successful over the last 12 months. And we've been able to continue at work. So, and obviously, at least my Grange and several others, we've been able to continue virtually and not always meeting in person. But it'll be a long time before there's a real need for people in my office to all be back together on a continuing basis in person. But the sad part about that, the downside to that, is that you miss that camaraderie at work, and just the building of friendships and getting to know people. Like I would not want to be a new employee trying to learn my job and get to know the people that I work with in this virtual environment. I just think that that's got to be really difficult. And so that's one of the things I think we have to think about when we're trying to attract new Grange members and new youth members, is how difficult it is to get to know our organization and to feel like you can be part of the organization when everything is virtual. So that's kind of why I wanted to get this conversation going. It's definitely something that I think we need to keep in mind and keep thinking about new ways to do things, and not just always rely on Zoom or in person. Like what are some other things we can do to get to know new members and build that relationship with each other. Alrighty. So if anybody has any other comments, this is your last chance. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up here. I appreciate you all for joining in today. I think we had a good discussion, good conversation on what if this is the new normal. I appreciate your input. I tried to capture some of the suggestions that we had and ideas so that we can keep sharing this information and keep building on this. And happy May Day to everybody.
Hang on a sec.
Thanks for having us, Ellen.